Hello, good morning. Welcome back. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. So, last class we did multiple inheritance and hierarchical inheritance. So, multiple inheritance is nothing but if you are deriving a class from more than one base class. Like a derived class having more than one base class is nothing but multiple inheritance, and we did a program on that. Then we did hierarchical inheritance, wherein a single base class having multiple derived classes. That is, you are deriving multiple classes from a single base class. And we also did a program for that. Today's class will do the hybrid inheritance. So what do you mean by hybrid inheritance? Hybrid, as the name suggests, is a combination of two or more types of inheritance. If in a program you have more than one type of inheritance, that becomes hybrid. It can be any type. It can be the single, multiple, multi-level or hierarchical. It's a combination of two or more forms of inheritance in a single program would be a hybrid inheritance program. So, it's not mandatory that it has to be this kinds of inheritance only. Any two or more kind you can use, and if a program has more than two types of inheritance, it becomes a hybrid inheritance program, and it is hybrid inheritance. So, you can see an illustration here. Next, we'll do a program on hybrid inheritance. First, we'll go through the program statement, understand, then we'll write a box for that, and then we'll try to understand what it is. After that, we'll start writing the program, because if we don't understand the program statement, then it will be very difficult to write the program. Create a class employee. So, employee is a class with name and address as data members. So, employee is a class with name and address as data members, and then you need to read it from the keyboard and then you need to print it. Basically, you need to create data member functions to take in the details of the employee such as name and address and to display it. So, one class is employee, which has two data members, that is name and address. So, you need to have member functions in the class to take it in and then display it. Then you derive a class. So, employee is the base class. From that you are going to derive a class called work details. So, work details is derived from employee, and it also has designation and salary. So, work details has data members as designation and salary, and then you need to create member functions to take in and display that. So, employee with two data members, that is name and address, then you are going to derive a class work details from employee, again which will have two data members, designation and salary. So, this name and address, whether it's inherited or not, it depends on the access specifiers, but then we need to write the input and output functions either in protected or in public. After that, create member functions to read and write. Okay, create a class sports. Here, sports again is an independent class. It is not derived from employee or from work details. So, again it's a base class only, right? With a data members get game name and incentive. So, you have two data members for sports, that is the name of the game and the incentive, and then you need to take in the appropriate you need to write the appropriate member functions to take in those details. So, then derive a class employee details from sports and work details. So, here you can see multiple inheritance because employee details has two base classes, one is sports and one is work details. Getting it? So, you will have a class employee which is not related, then from that you are deriving a class work details. Fine. And then you have a sports class which is not related to employee or work details, And then you have employee details, a class again which is derived through multiple inheritance because it will have two base classes, sports and work details, which computes the total salary. Here the total salary will be the salary plus the incentives. So salary of the class work details plus the incentives of the sports class would be the total salary. So you need to write member functions to compute the total salary and print it along with the name, the address, the designation and the game name what the employee plays and the incentives and the total salary. All these details has to be printed. So what are the details I need to print? The name of the employee, the address of the employee, the designation of the employee, the game played by the employee, the incentive for that game, and then the total salary, which is nothing but your salary plus the incentive had to be printed as an output. So you're taking the data from multiple classes and printing it. How many classes are there here? Here employee is one class, work details is a second, sports third and fourth is the employee details. So this program involves 4 different classes. I'll write one box diagram to show you the relation so that you will have an idea about the statement. And then we'll also decide what are the kinds of inheritance, which forms of inheritance are there in this program. Please make a note of the program statement. So, now let me put the program statement in a box. What was that? Employee was the class. Okay. From that, what did I derive? I derive a class work details. Okay. After that, I do have a class sports, which is not related to anything. And then I need to derive one more class. What is that? Employee details. Fine. So this is how it should look. What are the, see, I have a class employee. From that I derived class work details, and then I do have class sports, which is not related to these two, but then employee details is derived from work details and sports. So the two types of inheritance here are, see, I can say this one is multi-level. Yeah, there are 3 levels: base, derived 1, derived 2. So this is and then 2 base classes here and 1. This is multiple. Yes. So I have multi-level and multiple inheritance here. Please have a look. I have a class employee. From that I am deriving a class called work details, and then I have a class sports which is not derived from any of these, and together I would be having it in employee details. Employee details is the class which is derived from work details and sports. So employee details will have the public functions and the protected data and the public data of employee. It will go to work details and then it will go to employee details. So employee details will have the details of work as well as employee from here, and then sports. So all the 3 details of all the 3 inheritable data which can be inherited, leave the private because private cannot be accessible. Apart from that, other data, that is the protected and the public data, is available to employee details. Here it is multi-level inheritance, here it is multiple inheritance. So the two forms of inheritance in this program are multi-level and multiple. So this is a program related to hybrid inheritance. Please have a look then, because this understanding the relation is very important when you write your program. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to put in and access the data. So let me start with my class employee. Fine. So before that, hash include iostream.h conio.h. After that, class employee. So let me say private. What are the two data members? The name and the address of the employee, right? So both are string. Char name. So let me say it is maximum of 30 characters length, and char address again maximum of 30 characters length, or you can make it, let me make it 40, because address may have a longer data script. Okay, then public. What we need to describe, have the member functions. So let me say void input e for employee, so that it is easy for me to remember also. Void input e, then void display e, that is display employee, input employee. So in the class employee, I have name and address, wherein I would be taking the employee name and the employee address, and then I am going to, this input function will ask the user to enter it, and the output function would display that. And what is the name of the class? This is employee, which is the base class 1. So I am very clear here, that is employee is the class and it has two data members, name and address. And then I have excuse me, I have member functions input and display, and I am going to take in and display the data. Please make a note so that I can continue defining these two. I will write the definitions of these two outside. Now, how do I write it? The written type of the function is void. Name of the class to which it belongs to is employee. Scope resolution operator. Input e is the function. So what are the things you are going to take in? You need to take in the name and the address. So let me say cout endl, enter name and address of the employee. Cin name, cin dot get line, let me say address 40. The size of the address was 40. This would complete my input e, that is input employee function, wherein I am asking the user to enter the name and the address of the employee, and I am taking in that data. So hopefully I am clear here. Please make a note of this. Then I will be writing the display employee function. How do I do that? Void employee scope resolution operator, and display E. Yeah. So now see out. Employee name, name, and see out. Address, so I am taking in the name and the address of the employee. Yeah. Void employee display E. See out employee name and address. So employee name would be printed and then the name of the employee, whatever I have stored in this variable, would be printed. After that, in the new line, address would be printed, and whatever the data I have stored in the variable address would be printed. So that is what display employee will display the details such as name and address of the employee. So this completes my employee class also. Please make a note of this. Now we'll write the next class, which is work details, which I need to derive from employee. So what will the work details have? It will have the designation and the salary of the employee. Okay. So it is to be derived from employee. How do I do that? Class work details colon visibility mode, okay, and the name of the class, base class. So the work details class is derived from the class employee. In class employee, I had the name and the address of the employee, and we had member functions input E and in display E, that is input employee and display employee, wherein I took in the data, that is the name and the address of the employee, as well as I displayed it. Fine. So what am I going to inherit in this? Data members, I am not going to inherit anything because both were in the private section. Whereas the member functions which would be inherited to work details is nothing but the input employee and the display employee, because they were declared in the public section of the class. And where will they be placed? They will be placed in the public section of the employee only, because the visibility mode is public here. So let me say protected. Please make a note here. I am making it as protected, not as private. So anything made protected is accessible to all the derived classes, and it gets inherited also, but cannot be accessed from outside. So I want these data members to be inherited, but it should not be accessed from outside. That is why I will make the data members as protected here. Don't write it as private, because you will not be able to access it. I will tell you why I need to access also. So put it in protected. What is the first one? Char designation. Let me say DSG deseg, 10 characters length, and float salary. So when I have to compute the total salary, it is nothing but incentive from the sports class and the salary from the work details class. And where I need to do it? In employee details. So I will not be able to access this variable, that is salary, if I don't put it in protected. If I am putting it in protected, it gets inherited also and it is accessible also. So public void input work details and void display work details. So how many member functions are there here? There will be two inherited here and then 2 inherited. Total there will be 4. That is, I am inheriting 2 input employee and display employee from employee, as well as input work details and display work details of the class work details itself. So these are the member functions. Please make a note. Then I will write the definition. Like I am going to define these two. Body of that I will write. So how would I start writing it? I will start with return type of the function, void, the name of the class to which it belongs to, work, scope resolution, operator, and name of the function. Okay. So cout, enter your designation. So this would be printed cin. This is the variable I had declared to store in the designation, which is a character array which can hold maximum of 10 characters length. Next is cout, enter your salary. Cin salary. So I am asking the user to enter the designation, taking in the designation. After that, asking the user to enter the salary and taking in the salary. Fine. Please make a note of this, and I am writing this in work details according to the statement of the program. Now I need to write the display work details function. So what is it? Void work details, scope resolution, operator, and then I need to write display work details. Let me see. Cout, endl, designation, so designation would be printed as it is because it is in double quotes, and then the variable which I have taken designation in, that is which stores the designation as DESG, and the value of that would be printed because I am writing it without quotes here. After that, cout salary. Salary. So this is the end of the work details class, correct? I am taking in the details and then I am displaying it. So this is the work details. I completed work details class. Please make a note of this. And now let me write the sports class. In sports, I'm not deriving it from anything, yeah, and it's an independent class. What are the two data members it has? It has the game name and the incentive. Like suppose if I'm playing cricket, I would be getting extra incentive. For example, I can say 5,000 rupees per month. And if the game is hockey, if the game, like you have different games, badminton, throw ball, like basketball, football, like all these are different games, and then each one has a incentive with that. So in total salary, I need to add the salary of the employee along with the incentive. So that incentive would be taken in the sports class. So class sports. I'm not writing any other class because it's an independent class. I'm not deriving it from anything. So let me say protected. Protected means it can be accessed by the derived classes as well as the functions of the sports class, but cannot be accessed outside it. And it is inherited also. Fine. So let me say char game name is of 15 characters length. Char game name, then float incentive. Incentive is a data member of the type float, and char game name of 15 characters length is a character array wherein I am asking the user to enter the name of the game which he plays, then also the incentive for that game. Fine. So let me say public in void input sport, then void display sport. So I will say input sport and display sport, which will ask the user to enter the name of the sport or the name of the game he plays, and I am going to display the name of the game along with the incentive, and wherein the incentive also is entered by the employee. So this is my sports. It isn't protected. So these two are accessible by the derived classes as well as it gets inherited, and it is accessible by these two member functions. That is done. Like even if it is private also it is accessible. But if you make it as protected, it can be accessed in the derived classes also. So that is why I am making it as protected, because this gets inherited. Fine. Now let me write the definition of the input function. So how do I write it? Void the name of the class to which it belongs to, sports, scope resolution operator, and the name of the function. What is the name of the function here? The name of the function is input sport. So let me say cout enter the game name, or you can say sport name. Cin game name. After that, cout enter the incentive. Cin incentive. So I am asking the user to enter the game name, and I am taking it in game name variable, and then I am asking the user to enter the incentive for that game, and I am taking it in the incentive variable. Please make a note of this. After the input function, now I need to write the display functions of the sport class. So what do I display? I display the sport name along with the incentive. So void the name of the class is sports, scope resolution operator, and what is the name of the function? The name of the function is display sport. So I will say cout handle, sport name, game name, then enter. So it will say sport name as it is because I have written it in quotes, and then it will print the value which is stored in the game name. So I have asked the user to enter the game name. I have taken it in the variable game name, so that whatever the user entered would be printed here, and then again a new line is inserted. Cout, enter, incentive, so incentive would be printed. Again, the value of the variable incentive is printed here and then enter. So this is my display sport function. So what are the three classes I wrote? I wrote the employee class. Then I derived a class work details from employee. Then I wrote an independent class, that is sports. Now I need to write employee details class, which is derived from both sports as well as work details through multiple inheritance. How do I write that? So class employee details visibility mode of the first base class, let me say public, name of the base class sports, comma, visibility mode of the second base class, and the name of the second base class. Yeah, that is class employee details colon public sports comma public work details. That is, I am deriving the class employee details from two classes, that is sports as well as work details. So how many functions will the employee class have? It will have two functions from sports, that is input sport and display sport, and it will have four functions from work details, that is display input employee, display employee, input work details and display work details, and they would be placed in the public section of the class because the visibility mode for both the cases is public. And then how many data members it will have? Employee details will have two data members from sports. What are those? That is incentive and sport name, and it will get two data members from work details, that is designation and salary, because they were declared in the protected section of the class. So it goes to the protected section of the employee details. Hope you have understood this till now, because it is very crucial that you understand what gets inherited to which section here. Then let me say employee details has a private data member, float, total, salary. So total salary is calculated by adding the salary of the work details plus the salary or incentive of the sports. In order to access those two, I need to put it in protected. If I had written it in private, employee details cannot access the private data of the class. That is why in order to calculate the total salary, I need to access those two variables. For that reason, you need to write it in the protected section, not in the private. If it is written in the protected, it is accessible by the derived classes also, but it cannot be accessed outside. Like if I want to access it in main, it will not allow me, but then the derived classes can access the protected data. Since I need to access here to calculate the total salary, I need to put it in the protected section of the class. Getting it? So public, let me say, what will let me have void input, one function, void display, another function, and void calculate. So what will I calculate here? Let me calculate the total salary. So I will say void calculate, input, display and calculate. This is my end of the class. So in employee details, I have one data member, that is total salary, and then I will have input, display and calculate. Getting it? So let me start with input function. So void employee details, scope resolution operator, input. Let me call all the functions like input employee here, input work details, and then input sport. Fine. I am calling all the three input functions here, which will call the employee details, which will store the employee name and address. Work details will take the designation of the employee and the salary of the employee, and input salary, input sports will take the game name and the incentive. So I am taking in all of that, and that's it. Like I will take in that details, I will call it in the input function of the employee details. After that, void employee details, scope resolution operator, calculate. What will the calculate function do? Let me calculate the total salary of the employee. Fine. How do I do that? So what was the variable? Total salary is equal to salary plus incentive. Salary of the class input work details and incentive of the class sport. Since these two are in the protected section, I can access it here. If I had declared it in the private, it would have given me error. That is why I have put it in the protected section. These two would be stored in the total salary. Total salary, I will write it in the display function of the class employee details. So please make a note of these two member functions. After this, what will I write? I need to write the display function, right? Void and the name of the class is employee details, scope resolution operator, display. Okay. In this, let me call the display functions in a proper order, the order in which I want it to be printed. So, let me say display employee, which will tell me the name and the address of the employee. Then display sport, which will print me the game name and the sport game name and the incentive, okay, of the employee. After that, display work details, which will print me the designation and the salary of the employee. Then see out total salary. Yeah. After that, the last would be total salary. So it would have shown me by this time the name, the address, the sport name, the game name played by the employee, and the incentive, the designation, and the salary. Total salary. Anyway, in the calculate class, calculate function, I would have calculated total salary as salary plus incentive. That would be printed for total salary. So, in this order, in the output, it will print me. Please make a note of this. Now, I need to write my main function. So, without main, my program will not work. So, void main. CLR clear screen. How do I write that? Then what do I write? I need to create the object for only one class, that is employee details, because with the help of that object only I can access all the three remaining classes. So how do I do that? Class name space the object name. Employee details. Then employee details, let me say EOBJ. So now EOBJ dot, let me call the input function. Then EOBJ dot calculate EOBJ dot display get ch, then close. See here, when I am creating the object for employee details, EOBJ dot input. When I call this function, what is there in the input function? There's again the function call of input employee, input sport, and input work details. All the three functions are there in this input, so it will run that, take in the values of the variables, the employee name, the address, the designation, salary, game name, and the incentive. All these data would be taken when I call this function. After that, I need to call the calculate function before I call the display, because in the display I am going to display the total salary, which has to be calculated in the calculate function. So when I say calculate, it will go there. What it will do? It will say total salary is equal to the salary of the work details class plus the incentives of the sports class. So it will add those two and store it in the total salary variable. After that, when I call my display function, it will call the employee details first, employee class first. So it will be displayed employee, which says the name and the address of the employee. After that, display sport, which will say the game name played by the employee and the incentive he gets. After that, it will display the work details, which will tell me the designation and the salary. Then I have total salary printed. So these are the details which would be printed. Then this would end my this function. Let me write the output, how it will look. So when I call this, the output would be, so let me add one more line here, cout endl employee details. So when I do this, it will print me and then it will call. So it looks nice. Syntactically, there is no error here. So please make a note, then I will write what would be the output here. The output would be something like this. It will say employee details. Then I call the input function. So it will ask you, and it will not write it in the output here. It will ask you to enter all those details. After that, I call the calculate. It would have calculated, and then it will call me all the display functions. So what would be the output? It will be employee name, address, and then sport name, incentive. After that, it will print me designation, salary, and then the total salary. This is how my output will look. Yeah, hopefully you've understood this. So we completed with hybrid inheritance also. Hope you have understood this. Now we'll do the practical program. I will explain you what it is and how the class will look, but I want you to write the program so that you will understand it better. So what does the program say? Create a class containing data members, roll number and name. So you need to create a class. Let me say you have to give the name of the class also, roll number and name. So let me say student. Okay, student details. Let me say it is student std details would be the name of the class. And then create a member functions to read it, yes, and to display the data using the concept of single inheritance. So what do I mean by single inheritance here? Single inheritance is nothing but you have one base class and one derived class. So you need to create a derived class that contains the marks of two subjects, and then you need to calculate the total marks also. Total marks should not be taken from the user. You have to take in the marks of two subjects and then you need to calculate it and print it in a proper way. See, since this is a practical program, if the output is not there in a proper way, then you would lose marks. So you need to pay attention the way the output is presented. So what does it say? It's a single inheritance program. That is, you have one base class and one derived class. In the base class, you will have data members, that is roll number and name. And then in the derived class, you will take in the you will have 3 data members wherein 2 would be taken from the user, and then you need to calculate the total and print it. So let me say, like, I'll tell you how it would look, but I want you, as this is the homework also, I want you to write this program on your own, as this is a very simple program and we have done similar programs to that. So what is the thing? It is class student. So let me say class student details. What does it have? Data members, roll number, name. Okay, roll number and name are the data members here, and then I need to have member functions as input, student, and display student. Okay, these are the 2 member functions. So let me say, let this be in public section and let this be in the private section. So in the private section, in student details, roll number and name is there. In the public section, input student and display student are the 2 member functions. This is one class. So how will it look also? Let me say. It will something like this. I will say class, yes, student details, then private, char, what was this thing? Int. Okay, roll number, let it be int, then char name of 30 characters length, public void input student void display student. Let me say my class would look something like this, wherein these are the details. Say I'm not writing the whole code, I want you to write it. I'm just telling you how it should be. You can name whatever you want, but this is the general idea how it should be. After that, what was the derived class specification? What was the derived class name? So let me say student marks. So in that, I need to have data members like float, subject 1, subject 2, comma, because I need to calculate this total. So let it be like that. After that, what will I do? Member function. But this has to be inherited. You need to derive it from student details. Okay, this is the derived class. From student, derived class from student details. So what will be the member functions? Void input. So the other one was void student. So let me say void input. I am taking the subject 1 and subject 2. Marks, void, calculate, which will calculate the total. Then void display, which will display this. Then apart from that, I need to call the student detail function also in this input and the display function, because I need to display the roll number and name of the student along with the marks of subject 1, subject 2 and then the total. So you need to be very careful when you are writing this. How will it look in the class wise? So it will be class student, whatever is the derived class name here, scope, colon, visibility mode and the base class name, which is student details. Getting it? So this is how you need to write. I want you to, that is the homework for today. The practical program, what you're writing is the homework. Hope you have understood this. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.